Everything F1. Driven by fans, for the fans.
The F1 Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Everything F1 Podcast, where we're going to talk to you about all the things about this week's upcoming Imola Grand Prix. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to the Everything F1 Podcast. With me today we do have Spunge. Hi Spunge.
Hello.
We have Adam. How you
Hello.
doing, Adam?
I'm good.
And we also have a special guest today. We've got George Howson from the Grid Talk podcast. How you doing, George?
Doing just fine. Very much. Thank you, James. Thank you for having us on. Good to be here. Looking forward to this.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Hopefully, we will be gentle.
It's all right, mate. Be as rough as you like. I can take it.
As always, folks, you can find us on all social medias. We are on Facebook at JoinEF1, Twitter at JoinEF1, and Instagram at the exact same address at JoinEF1. We're also on YouTube. We've got our own Discord server. So this week we're going to be talking about all things F1 and, of course, about the upcoming Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix in Imola. So first things first, should we talk about what news we have had around the paddock? Sponge, have you noticed anything that you wanted to chat about today?
Yeah, the first thing, obviously, with the death of Prince Philip, they have now changed the schedule. So FP1, I believe the whole thing has been changed around. But I know for Formula 1, FP1 is going to be 10 till 11 a.m. FP2 will be 1:30 to 2:30. FP3 has been moved forward on Saturday, I believe, to 10 till 11 a.m. Qualifying will be 1 till 2, and the race will be 2 till 4 on the Sunday. It's all designed, obviously, to work around the funeral of Prince Philip. So
yeah, to be respectful and work around that time. Those are all UK times as well. So if you're listening in a different country, adjust accordingly. It just means, obviously, we're going to have a slightly earlier start for things. So yeah, make sure you pay attention to the times and set your recording devices to an hour early. Hopefully Sky Plus probably just keep it all in time anyway. Adam, has any article come to your attention this week?
Yeah, I noticed that Zach Brown had said that Andreas Seidl is the best team principal in Formula 1. Obviously, he's a bit biased, but you can see where he's coming from with how he's sort of worked the team to bring them back up.
He's done a great job. But there is a clear bias there. What do you think makes him would make him the best team principal on the grid at the moment?
Well, I think a lot of people said, because he's German, he's very precise efficient and structured and efficient, and he puts the right people in the right place and makes sure everything's working the way it should. I think it's like you see in a lot of teams, once you get the right people in place, everything sort of comes together. It's not just one person. You could, Zach Brown saying, Andreas Seidl is the best team principal, but Zach Brown has done his bit as well, and James Key with the car, so there's not just the team principal. I think it's the whole team coming together.
Yeah, I'm waiting for a team like that.
Yeah.
I got you, Rusky.
No comment.
Have you got an opinion on the best team principal on the grid, Sponge, while we're there? Do you think Seidl could be the man that is the number one principal?
I think at the moment, probably, yeah. I don't think there's anybody else that's kind of turned things around as much as he has in the last couple of years, certainly. We all knew that he was good. I think it was Audi that he was with before, wasn't it, from the Le Mans series? So, yeah, I think he's come in and proved his worth. Say again?
Was it not Porsche he was with? He was with Porsche.
You're probably right, actually, yeah.
Yeah, so he's obviously a great team principal. He's doing a good job. He's doing what he's been employed to do. But I think there is probably a touch of the bias from Zach Brown there. Should we head over to our guest for the podcast. George, have you seen any news articles that you want to talk about at all this week?
Well, I'm not sure if it was this week, but there's a lot of rumours about the Canadian Grand Prix being postponed this year, not being on, because it's one of them races, not like Australia where they can just put it to the end of the calendar because it's Canada, it'll be freezing cold, you can't race when it's snowing.
They'd have to put chains on the
admittedly,
tyres.
yeah, exactly. We'd love to see it, don't get me wrong, but practically it could never work.
No.
And they're on about bringing Turkey back in, which... Yeah, Turkey had, it hosted a great race last season, but for me, that was a real one-off. That was because they resurfaced the track and it was cold and it was wet. It's not normally those things, especially in the summer. I personally rather see Mugello or Nürburgring or Hockenheim or a track like that in its place, but as always with F1, money talks, even for the backup racers, so I think they probably will go to Turkey.
Yeah. Well, you might be right. I actually quite like the Turkey track, but I'm hoping that they keep Canada. It's I think what the rumor is that it's a fight over $6 million to put on the race. It's all about money, isn't it? At the end of the day, what have you got an opinion on this, Sponge?
I'd like to see it stay.
Yeah.
It's always been one of my favourite Grand Prix. I don't know. If it was a toss-up between Canada staying and Imola staying, I probably would say I'd want Imola to stay.
Okay.
So, I don't know. If it's £6 million that they're wrangling over, I think F1 need to kind of remember who was there for them last year.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's all money, isn't it, at the end of the day? But I would like to see it stay.
And thinking about... Obviously, Canada, it's a North American race, isn't it? They want more, if anything, Liberty, being an American company, want more races over there. So it seems strange to kind of cut off their nose to spite their face type situation. Do you think
they always have like sellout crowds as well? You know, they always
they've got a massive fan base.
We've
had some great races there as well.
Yeah. I think it'd be daft for them to let it go. I think it is. It's one of them. What did they call them now? The jewels in the crown or whatever they call it that they said they'd never get rid of.
Yeah.
But who knows? I mean, at the end of the day, money talks, doesn't it? Especially with what's been going on for the last year. No income coming in from the fact there's been no fans there. Everywhere's going to be feeling the pinch. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I'd like to see it stay.
So who would you prefer to? Which track would you prefer to keep on the calendar then, George? Obviously, you brought this subject up. Is there a track that you'd prefer to stay? Would you, or obviously you said you wouldn't like Turkey, but one of the other tracks maybe.
Well, I wouldn't say I wouldn't like. It's not like I dislike Turkey. I think it is a good track, but I feel like it doesn't usually produce that many good races. I mean, like I said, if Canada's going to drop out, I'd like to see Mugello come in. I'd personally rather us be racing at Mugello this weekend than Imola. I do like Imola. I think it's a fantastic racing circuit. But for F1 these days, it's a bit narrow. It's hard to overtake. But the race last year was good. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I mean, like I said, Nürburgring, Hockenheim, somewhere like that to replace Canada if it is gone. But obviously, I prefer Canada. It's a great circuit. Like you said, packed out crowds.
Yeah.
That's not going to be the case this year, obviously, but normally that is the case. You can overtake there. It usually does produce good races, and every now and again you get rain like we did in 2011, and we get absolutely incredible. I'll bring that race up whenever I can because I remember it was on really late at night. I think I was only like 15 years old, and I had to be in bed for school at like I think 10 o'clock, something like that, and the race just kept going on and on and on, and I just turned it down really low on the volume so my parents wouldn't know I was awake. But then I just ended up going nuts when Jenson Button took the lead, and that blew my cover.
That's it. Yeah, absolutely. As a Jenson Button fan, that's obviously one of my favourite.
Mine too.
Favourite races of the last millennia or whatever. Adam, have you got anything to add to this whole Canada situation?
Yeah, I think it'd be very bad to lose Canada for another year. I think we missed it a lot last year. We've always got good racing in Montreal. But yeah, there are tracks that could be just as good, like George said. So we'll have to see. Yeah, money. I'm sure they'll figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
They always seem to figure it out. If it's only about money, they'll
find it somewhere. Penny pinch.
Yeah.
An interesting note to note for this year: in order for the F1 to go to Montreal in 2021, the government will need to adapt to its quarantine rules because there's no time in the F1 calendar for a 14-day quarantine, as the teams will be racing in Baku on June the 6th. So, do you think this year's race is probably in trouble as well, then, Adam?
Well, I think it's a fluid situation. We'll have to see how it goes with vaccinations and things like that. Because as we saw with Bahrain, people that are quarantined or were vaccinated were allowed into the track. So
yeah,
we'll just have to wait and see. It's still a long way away, so I think things will change rapidly between now and then.
Absolutely. Well, as I say, I hope that Canada stays on the calendar. It's a great track. So again, I'm with George and probably a few of you others here, and hopefully some of you listeners have a similar opinion to that. You'd like to see Canada remain on the calendar. And the next piece of news was news that came in just before we started recording this podcast, and that was that Andrew James, the F1 technical director, is actually stepping down next month. A little bit about James is this. Through his 25-year career, he has been a fundamental part in making F1 such a global hit. He's implemented technical systems to establish state-of-the-art broadcast centres and ensure the series has remained at the cutting edge of technology. Keeping the sport going, no matter what was the problem, was one of his many achievements. In 2019, at the Japanese Grand Prix, when there was a typhoon threat, it should have cancelled the race. But had it not been for James, he swiftly relocated the Media and Technology Centre. He also implemented remote operation facilities throughout the coronavirus. And James has never let the sport down. There is currently no word on what James will be doing next. But what is clear from all of F1 is how appreciated he was. Next news article to talk about. We had a little chat about sprint races last week, but we're going to talk about them again because it is such an interesting subject. So they've proposed that we're going to have 3 sprint races this year at 3 different circuits. George, I'm going to come straight to you because we heard Adam's opinion last week, and we'll let Spunge have his little rant at the end. What do you think about sprint races? Is it going to be something that's good for the sport, or do you think it's actually not needed?
Oh, it's a tough one for me, this. Personally, I'm a bit of a purist when it comes to this stuff. I don't think it's needed, to be honest. It's great to have them in things like F2. I love how they revamped the F2 weekends this year with the 3 races, actually. I think it's great. Mm-hmm. But with F1, for me, there's qualifying for the race, and then there's the race. It's the Grand Prix. It's the big event. Yeah. I feel like having this little sprint race as well would kind of take away from some of that. But from an entertainment point of view, we love to see, let's just say if it was like the F2, do the qualifying, and that determines the grid for the regular Grand Prix, but then they reverse the top 10 for the sprint race, something like that. It'd be great from an entertainment point of view because you'd get Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen battling it out for 9th and 10th at the start of the race, but then you'd get those drivers being at the front anyway. Those guys are so quick, they'll just blast through anyway, unless it's like Monaco or maybe Imola. It's quite hard to overtake around Imola as well. So my gut instinct is that we don't need it, but then we see races like what we're probably going to get in Spain and Paul Ricard and Monaco. I love Monaco, but the racing's it just doesn't exist really because there's no overtaking. Weekends like that make me think, I wish we had a sprint race or something to mix it up. So after Bahrain, I'd say no, but after Spain, I might say yeah, we need them. But overall, I'm saying I'm kind of against them. I like how they're exploring the possibility of them, but I feel like with the big regulation changes coming in next year as well, in theory, that should make the racing better. I know we keep getting promised this again and again and again. These changes will make the racing better. We won't need DRS anymore and all this, and we still need it. So maybe finally we won't need something like a sprint race to revamp it.
Oh, well, you make absolutely good points. In fact, it sounds like you listened to last week's podcast because we came to kind of...
I did.
We came to kind of that conclusion ourselves, to be fair. It's... Coops was very much in the purist. He doesn't think we need it. But we were very much... it's worth giving it a shot. It's something new, something maybe that we could enjoy. And we've got to try it to see what happens, basically. Have you got a similar opinion on that, Sponge? Because I think you weren't on last week's podcast either, so we haven't heard what your opinion is on the sprint races.
I think I am a purist, and I do like the fact that it's a Grand Prix. I mean, at the end of the day, Grand Prix is supposed to be a single race. But I think over the last 2 seasons, the one thing that you can always guarantee causes a good race is uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you've got, if you've got some kind of uncertainty in a sprint race, then go for it. See how it goes. If they're doing it as a test, then fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, then. So that's what we think about the possible sprint races. We're kind of up for it, but are we sure whether we really need it? Let's go into our Imola Grand Prix preview. It's a great circuit, isn't it? Who here loves Imola? I'm going to have a show of hands. Yeah, Sponge loves Imola. Adam loves Imola. Yeah, we all love Imola. George loves Imola. I'm going to stick my hands up and say that I'm a lover of the Imola racetrack, the Emilia-Romagna race circuit. Sponge, have you got anything that you want to discuss about the Imola race? What are you looking forward to the most this weekend?
I just love going to Imola. I love the track. I'll be honest with you, I don't even care about the race as such. I just love the prospect of going to Imola.
Okay.
I mean, I obviously doing sim racing. I do a lot of racing around there in the GT3s on one of the games that I play, and it's just an amazing place to run. And I've watched quite a lot of stuff in terms of the Minardi Classic Festival that they have over there as well.
Yeah.
And listening to the videos of the cars go round, I mean, I went to Monza in 2012, and I remember just how kind of enchanting it sounded as you were walking towards the track in the first place. And I got that same sense from Imola.
Right, okay.
But personally, for me, the fact that I'm such a big Senna fan, it probably shouldn't, but it holds a special place in my heart for the fact that, his statue's there.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to make the F1 pilgrimage, almost like to see the statue and pay my respects and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the history of the place, because I love the fact that it's still coming through now. It's coming through its own battle against its demons, and it's always had issues. But you look at the track now, the revisions that they made in the mid 2000s, I think it was the last time that they changed it to make that long kind of start finish straight.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful track. It's an amazing track, and I love the prospect of going racing there. I really do.
Yeah, I know you were very happy last year when they announced it as one of the tracks that were going to take place during the coronavirus. So yeah,
I sincerely hope that they keep it on as a race, on the calendar, because I know that they're really keen. The organisers for the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix are really keen at keeping it on, and I really hope they do, because I really want to go there.
Do you think that means they'd have to alternate it with Monza, do a 1 year here, 1 year there kind of thing? Or do you think it would just
no
be
chance whatsoever of that happening?
Permanent fixture?
Absolutely no chance whatsoever. If Imola is going to come on, it's either going to be as an extra race or it's going to replace something else. But there's big strong rumours going around that China might end up coming off the calendar.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see it taking that place, to be perfectly honest with you, at the start of the season, which would be amazing.
Yeah.
And I hope it does. I really, really do hope it does. It's long been my favourite track, not just for Formula One, but for everything else: bikes, cars, any form of racing.
Mm-hmm.
If they didn't have a damn pesky DRS zone, it would be unbelievable. So yeah, there's my 2 pence worth.
Yeah, brilliant. No, absolutely. And it was well worth coming to you first because it's nice to hear such passion about a track on the circuit. What are you looking forward to most about the weekend, Adam?
Yeah, just having F1 racing back after 3 weeks. It's felt like so long. Given that we had such a long, well, not a long winter, but it felt like a long winter, and then you get one race, and then it's a 3 week break, and like, I just want another race.
Yeah.
But as Spunge said, I remember a long time ago racing Imola in one of the F1 games years ago, and I still remember it. Now I think it's such a great track to drive on. I think maybe the cars now are a bit too big, a bit too long for Imola. But even last year we had some good racing. Although Spunge said DRS word, I think last year was a bit too short. Right. So I think for this year they have extended it. So hopefully that will lead to a bit more overtaking.
Yeah, so they've extended the DRS zone, and they've changed it. It's still only one of them, but it's been expanded. The previous detection zone was placed at turn 18. However, this season it's been brought forward to the entrance of the first Rivasa turn at near turn 17. So the length of the detection zone has been extended in the hope of promoting more overtaking opportunities. Do you think? Let's go to our guest, George. Are you a fan of the DRS overtakes, or are you against it and it should be dropped?
I think it's a necessary evil in modern Formula One racing, unfortunately. I don't like it in the sense that I don't like as Eddie Irvine says, I don't like the push to pass. I don't like that. I just want to see drivers driving.
Yeah.
But with how the cars are, with the dirty air effects, with how sensitive the aerodynamics are, you need it to pass. Without DRS at Imola, we wouldn't see any overtakes. I think even with the DRS, like you said last season, it was a struggle. That's why they've extended it. So I don't like it in the sense that it's artificial, but it allows the drivers to overtake. I think with the cars, with the way the cars are at the moment, they have to have it. Yeah. Otherwise, even circuits like Monza, even circuits like Baku, tracks like Silverstone, without DRS, there won't be any passes at all on track.
Yeah, and that's a failure of the cars at the moment, isn't it? It's obviously they're kicking off so much dirty air. We'll hopefully see a lot less of that next year with the way we're doing. They're having obviously ground effect aerodynamics.
Fingers crossed.
Do you have an opinion on what you're looking forward to the most over the weekend? Obviously, I don't want to dwell on DRS for too long because I think Spunge is going to have his little mention about that in a moment. So, what are you looking forward to from the weekend the most?
I'm looking forward to the battle between Verstappen and Hamilton. I want to see how that shakes up. I mean, Verstappen was obviously quicker in qualifying in Bahrain, but Hamilton and Mercedes did them on the strategy, and I think they did that partly because Sergio Perez started at the back. Yep. They had two cars at the front. They had Hamilton and Bottas both at the front, so they could play the different strategies.
Yeah.
With Perez, with all four cars hopefully having a good qualifying and a good start to the race, it should be a lot more interesting. I'm really, really looking forward to the tactical battle between the two teams. Yeah,
no, absolutely, and obviously the Red Bull is apparently the highest speed, the better car this year. Do you think Mercedes will have done much in that 3 weeks off to kind of level the playing field at all?
It's hard to say. I mean, probably they upgrade the cars all the time these days, but 3 weeks in F1 terms, I mean, they could gain a couple tenths maybe, but the gap in qualifying in Bahrain was 0.4 of a second. That's big.
Yeah,
that's a big gap. I don't think they'll have closed it. I think we'll probably see Max Verstappen on pole again, but in the race, if Hamilton and Bottas are second and third, Mercedes could out-strategize them again. Yeah,
and do you think that's because of something I said last week in terms of Red Bull being out of touch with the being at the front, and that they maybe just forgotten how to control a race from that position?
It's hard to say. It's hard to say. They've not done it in a long time. They've not been the fastest team since 2013. It's a long time. Some of the top brass are still there. Obviously, Horner's still there, and I'm sure some of the people like Pierre Roquelin, I think he's still there as well from the Vettel days. But not a lot of them. So maybe they are a bit rusty in that sense. Maybe the pressure will show in that sense. But the they are really good. They do the fastest pit stops, for example, consistently. Yeah. They're still one of the best teams out there. But obviously, until they get that first win this season, there is going to be a bit of pressure, a bit of anticipation for that.
Absolutely. So we head over to Spunge so he can have his little rant about the DRS zones then. Obviously, we've mentioned DRS. They're adjusting the DRS zone for Imola, making it a bit longer. What are your thoughts on the whole of DRS? Get your rant out while you're here, Spunge. We know you want to. Go for it.
It's not a rant. It's just a negative comment. I'm not a fan. I don't understand why we still need DRS, to be honest with you. I know George has made the point that it's kind of a necessary evil for being able to overtake, but I just can't get past the fact that it's a fake overtake.
But
and it's like
I play devil's advocate here. They do all get that same opportunity. It's not like, only one car gets that opportunity to use the DRS. They all get that opportunity. They've just got to get within a second of the car in front.
Ask George Russell whether he gets the same opportunity as Lewis Hamilton. I'm sure he'll come out with a different opinion to that, mate. George Russell wouldn't be able to overtake me running down the road. I'll run down the road like a cow in a field.
Now, we like William.
We do. Listen, I think there's been in my head anyway. There's been plenty of examples, and I think last week was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Not last week. Last race was one of them, whereby you've got somebody catching somebody, and that old. Here's a way of summarising it, right? The late great Murray Walker put it best. It's one thing catching somebody, but to overtake them, it's quite another. It just don't apply anymore.
Mm.
The old part of racing, you race. You get alongside somebody, they defend. You get alongside somebody again, they defend. Now all you've got is an open rear wing versus a battery power.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way that you have to neutralise these things these days, and it's not the driver anymore. It's not the driver. It's not two drivers being able to get alongside each other and have a battle for 4 laps, because by the time they've got 1 lap round, DRS has gone. All right, you can go, bye, and that's it.
Yeah, I absolutely see what you're saying. I agree with aspects of what you're saying, but I do also kind of agree with what George is saying. It's pretty necessary at the moment with the length and the width of these cars. They just need that extra boost, and the fact that how much wake is coming off the car in front, it's just creating too much for cars to kind of get close to do those overtakes that they probably would be able to do back in 2000s and pre that era. So yeah, you've had your little rant. Oh, sorry, you had another idea.
I was going to ask a question on the back of that, right?
Okay.
Which I'm interested to hear George's opinion on this as well. You asked the question earlier about what do we think about the new format, the reverse grids and that kind of thing.
Sprint race, yeah.
Yeah, and also how do we think that the race at Imola is going to go? Because obviously a lot of people don't think that you get very good racing at Imola.
Mm-hmm.
And don't think that it should be on the calendar as a result of that. Are we possibly 2 to 3 years too early to be testing these things out, given the fact that we've still got DRS, given the fact that we've still got the old cars?
Mm-hmm.
You said about there's going to be tracks where you can't you can't overtake and whatever is it going to be exciting? Are they going to want to come from behind and can they follow and can they do if we're trialling it this year with cars that really struggle to follow each other, is it going to be kind of canned before it really has chance to take off? If you don't like that question, I think feel free to edit it out.
No, carry on. Carry on and answer the question. Sorry, George, you carry on.
No, it's okay. No, I agree. I totally agree, Sponge. That's part of the problem. Like that's. Because obviously you're getting the big regulation changes next year. That's why for me the sprint races seem a bit potentially redundant. It's just for me it's a gimmick in a way.
Yeah.
It's I mean, yes, DRS passes do feel a bit artificial, but what's really artificial is saying, okay, Hamilton, you were fastest in qualifying. Verstappen, you were second fastest in qualifying. You'll start 10th, you'll start 9th, just to make the there's more action. For me, that's very artificial.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I don't. It's a bit of a strange time to be testing it out. I think they're possibly doing it just in case we get a second or a third or a fourth. I don't know how many waves have been now, but whichever one's the next one, just in case they have to do double headers or just to get the race count up in some disaster scenario. I don't think that's going to happen, mind you, but I think they're possibly planning for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to answer your question as well. Obviously, it's an interesting concept and an interesting question. I do think they're probably. Well, I think they're trying it too early because the cars are going to be completely different next year. We're going to have the ground effect. The cars hopefully are going to be able to follow each other a bit more. Do they need to keep DRS on there? Hopefully not, really. Maybe they'll test it for the first year and say, we didn't have many overtakes, so we'll keep the DRS for the following year. Or, no, you know what? The cars were powerful enough and got close enough to overtake quite easily. So maybe we can drop the DRS for the future. As for the sprint races and that sort of thing, I'm all for it, giving it a go, and they can just use it as a kind of a benchmark for future discussions for future seasons. Do you want to answer that question, Adam, at all? Do you want to add your 2 pence into that conversation?
Just what you said about we're trying it too early. I think they're mainly trying it this year for logistical reasons to see how it would work in the format of the weekend.
Yeah,
I don't think they're looking at it in a way of spicing up racing this year. Mm-hmm. I think they're just looking to see how it would affect the weekend and how the car, how it might affect the cars going forward. I think it's just as we said before, trial. It's just to see, will this work? How much is going to cost the teams? Will it make much of an effect on the grid for Sunday? So I think it's just mainly see how it works rather than whether it will spice up the racing or not this year.
Absolutely. Well, we will see. We shall see. We did kind of digress from our topic that we were on at the time, but we can get back onto the. It's okay, no problem at all. We'll forgive you, Sponge. That's no problem. It was well worth discussing those. Let's get back to the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. It's at the Autodromo Enzo Dino Ferrari. Imola, as you probably all know it as. The length of the track is 4.909 kilometres, which is a race distance of 309.049 kilometres, and we're going to have 63 laps there. Now, the lap record is held by no one else than Lewis Hamilton, and he did that in 2020, and that was at 1 minute 15.484 seconds. Are we going to see that fall this year, do you think? Are we going to get a better, faster lap this year, Adam?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember if they were any faster in Bahrain this year than they were last year with the downforce of the loss. I know they were fast in testing, but then they were using softer tyres in testing as well and probably running the engine modes a bit higher. Mm-hmm. So I'd say probably not. No.
And the cars have actually been, the regulation has changed that to make them cars are very slightly slower, isn't it, with the rear wing changes. Okay, so the first GP for Imola was in 1980, so they've been racing there for a long time. The tyre selection for this weekend is the C2, the C3 and the C4. It's the middle of the range set of tyres. And as we've mentioned, the updated times are slightly earlier than you were expecting as per the original calendar layout. So we're going to be starting earlier and be able to see all the racing a bit earlier. What are you expecting from the race, Sponge? Who are you expecting to be on the top step? Who are you expecting to be second and third? And who do you think will DNF? Let me cut in there. DNF will be Mazepin, yeah?
Yeah. Obviously.
Voldemort, as we call him on our show.
What did you call him, sorry?
Voldemort.
Yeah.
He who shall not be named.
Brilliant. I think Verstappen will win by quite a way.
Okay.
I think Perez might even nick second if they can get the car to go.
Yeah.
Third, Hamilton.
Okay, going playing safe there, I think.
Yeah, you got to put him there or thereabouts, haven't you?
Yeah.
I think it's going to end up quite predictable. Like, when I say predictable, like, Red Bull and Mercedes fighting it out at the top. It'll take until lap 19 for Ferrari to actually realise that they're racing, and then they'll call their strategy from there as usual.
Do you think they're going to be strong this weekend in Imola? Obviously, they're going to have expectations of fans. The locals wanting their team to do well.
I think they probably will. I think it's good for them that there's going to be no fans actually there at the track.
Right.
I mean, if there's anywhere in the world that your home Grand Prix puts pressure on you, it's Italy with Ferrari. So I think, in the grand scheme of things, it's probably best that there are no fans actually there.
Yeah.
They're obviously going to want to do well. Only time tells with Ferrari at the moment. They did all right last race.
Mm-hmm.
If they can carry it on, then great. If not, I don't think it'll be any surprise that they're kind of in or around the mid-table. As long as they're not further forward than McLaren, I'll be happy.
Yes, we want to make sure McLaren are ahead of them, as not so secret McLaren fans over here. Adam, what are your expectations from the race? All the steps. Who's going to DNF? We already know what you're probably going to say for that one. But give us some expectations from the weekend.
Yeah, quite similar to Spunge. I think Red Bull need to sort of hit back after Bahrain. I think they really need to sort of get a 1-2 or at least a 1-3 to really keep themselves in the championship. They can't let Mercedes start to build that gap this early in the season, and confidence as well. So I think Verstappen first, hopefully Perez second, and then Hamilton third. Okay. I think Perez, I think if he had started from 11th in the last race, I think he would have finished on the podium.
Yeah.
So if he can start somewhere near the front in this race, I think he could do well. I think DNF, I think Latifi, just for
to be different, just to be different. Okay.
Yeah.
Have you got any expectations from? Obviously, you're a McLaren fan as well. Any expectations from your Orange boys?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see because they didn't do so well there last year, but I think that was because they just switched to their new front nose concept before that. So I think they're still struggling with that. So hopefully we'll see some improvement. And there's not a lot of slow speed corners, which should hopefully suit the McLaren. So I'm hoping for a 5-6 in qualifying, maybe a 4-6 in qualifying for McLaren.
Oh, okay. And where do you think they'll finish in the race? Do you think they'll be 4th and 5th? Or somewhere around there?
Yeah, 4th, 5th. Just right behind the front runners would be perfect.
And which one would you prefer to be above the other?
Lando,
yes. It's got to be Lando. All Lando fans. Okay, George, you're up. What are your expectations from the weekend?
Well, like I said before, I think Red Bull do have the fastest car coming into Imola.
Yep.
I do think that Max Verstappen will win. I don't think it'll be easy though. I think, in qualifying, Red Bull have the edge, but in the race it was very even between them. I think, Verstappen had a little edge probably on Hamilton because of this tyre strategy, but there you go.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Hamilton and Verstappen will fight out for the lead. But I do think it will be Verstappen that wins, and I think that'd be great for the championship. Two different drivers and two different constructors winning the first two rounds sets us up for a good season, hopefully.
Yeah.
And third, I think Perez. I could see a Red Bull 1-2, to be honest. I could see that happening, but I think Perez will finish third. I think he's comfortably better than Bottas as a driver, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, Adam, if Perez started 11th like he was meant to, he would have finished on the podium last week in Bahrain, albeit with a Mercedes blunder in the pit stops. I want to see McLaren do well as well. Ricciardo did get a podium at Imola last season.
Yeah,
driving for Renault, and I'd argue a less competitive car than what he has now.
Uh-huh.
Finished 7th last time in Bahrain, but that was with wing damage. So if he avoids contact on the first lap, he's an outside bet for a podium for me. as is maybe even Charles Leclerc. He did really well at Imola last year, and he can drive the wheels off that Ferrari, even if it's not the best car.
Yeah, but it is improving, and they showed the improvements at the last race. So hopefully they can continue the momentum forward. I know obviously they certainly caught our attention in that qualifying and how well they were actually doing in Bahrain. Who do you think will DNF first, Voldemort or Mazepin, as we call him?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Voldemort.
Do you think he'll make it to the fourth corner this race?
No. No, I don't think he will do. I believe in the spiritual powers of people willing things to happen. There's millions of people around the world willing him to crash. and it happened last time, so it could happen again. Plus, that Haas is an absolute dog to drive. It looks awful.
It does.
Both Haas drivers spun last time out in Bahrain. And Imola with its harsh curbs and little runoff. I think both of them could retire, and that's no bad reflection on Mick Schumacher. I think he's an excellent driver, but you can't polish a turd.
No,
that's all I'll say.
No, absolutely, I completely agree. That car is a terrible car. Sponge, what do you want to say?
I was just going to add, Coops has sent his predictions in as well, and I think I've actually just kind of nicked his prediction without realising it, because he went Verstappen, Perez, Hamilton with Schumacher a DNF and fastest lap for Perez.
Oh, okay.
So that's the 𝐃𝐫𝐢𝐯𝐷's predictions.
Ah, okay, brilliant. Well, it's very likely. I think everyone's saying that the Haas is probably, or one of the Haas is going to be not finishing the race. It's interesting that he's chosen Mick Schumacher as the one. I guess maybe because it's his turn. Mazepin had his DNF last week. It's Mick Schumacher's turn, according to Coops. I'm going to say my predictions for the weekend. I'm going to say Lewis Hamilton is still going to pull it out of the bag. I just think that after the last race, he just really proved that he can even drive not the fastest car and get it into positions that, maybe a driver of not such talent could. I know a couple of you are shaking your head there. I'm going to say...
Just for the record, everybody, Tillery's sat there in his Mercedes t-shirt. He's got Mercedes face paint on. He hasn't really.
Hamilton poster in background.
Not quite. I'm a British supporter, so there is a British bias, absolutely. I wear my McLaren t-shirt all the time too. I just happen to be wearing my Mercedes one today. But yeah, I think Lewis will pip him to the post, and he'll be the one that gets it on the top step. I think Max Verstappen will be second, and then Perez will be third. And I think Bottas will probably, I don't know, I think he's going to have a terrible race and being like 7th or 8th or something like that. As for the Papaya team, one of the other teams that I obviously do support because they're a British team and they obviously have a British driver. I'm going to say McLaren are going to be there. They're going to sweep up the rest of the points, the rest of the big points in 4th and 5th, and I think Ferrari will hopefully be around there as well in terms of 6th and 7th maybe, or 6th and 8th, or I think DNF will be the obvious, and we won't need to mention his name anymore. And I'm going to say fastest lap. Fastest lap will be Max Verstappen. I think because he'll be in the second place, he'll want to maybe go in for a fresh set of tyres and come out and do the fastest lap.
I put my fast lap as Bottas because he's usually like 4th, but so far ahead of everyone else, he usually stops and gets fresh tyres at the end. Yeah. Goes the fastest lap.
Yeah, you could be right. Absolutely. Bottas. Yeah, could be right. You had your hand up before as well, Adam. Did you want to say something else?
Yes. No, it's just about Haas. I was reading an article the other day. Schumacher had said that there's no reason Haas can't fight for Q2 this year. I was like, have you driven the car? Have you seen what happened in Bahrain? How are you
not
getting
lacking
into
confidence, is
Q2?
there?
You can barely get out of the pit lane, let alone out of Q2. So
With
I just
Mazepin.
thought it was funny.
Can't guarantee anything.
No.
Danny's made a few predictions as well. He's also put Verstappen on the top step. He thinks Hamilton will come second and Perez third. DNF is, of course, Mazepin, as everyone else has mentioned. And his fastest lap will be Danny Rick in the Papaya McLaren. So, yeah, that's quite a good prediction. We shall see who, out of all 5 of us, 6 of us, 7 of us, however many predictions we've put forward, who actually got the most right. I think it's going to be me.
One's got to be right, surely. They can't
Well,
all
3
be
of us
right,
had near enough the
surely.
same result, so one of us got to be right.
Yeah, we're not far off. I mean, Joe's also put the very similar predictions to Danny. Apart from her fastest lap was Norris, so it's just the opposite McLaren car. So, yeah.
Yeah, but Joe meant Norris from Coronation Street.
I say Ashley. That's the wrong one.
That's spot on.
Amazing. That's got to be kept in.
That's fine. Keep it in. Okay, now we'll go on to our questions from our fans. We've had a few questions on the page and in the WhatsApp group. Thanks very much for submitting those. We'll first go to the question sent in by Darshield Nagda. I do apologise if I've said your name incorrectly, but it's Darshield Nagda from our WhatsApp group. He asks, with how the first race has gone, does Verstappen have a solid chance of becoming the youngest champion? Adam, we'll go to you first.
I don't know. I think we'll need to see how these next couple of races go. Whether he has it in him to do the charge for the championship. I think Hamilton's so well versed winning championships now. He sort of can do it with his eyes closed. So I think
or
there'll
on
be
3 wheels, as
yes, or in 3 wheels. So I think Verstappen will have to do a Rosberg and really dig deep.
Yeah, George, what do you think? What's your answer to that question?
I've just done some quick maths because I thought, would he be the youngest champion ever if he won it this year? And he wouldn't be.
Okay.
Hamilton and Vettel both won their first championships 23, I think, according to this.
He's 24, is he now? Oh, well, there you go, Darshield.
20.
He's too old. He's already too old.
Max Verstappen is too old, which makes me feel even older. But
It'd be the youngest Dutchman to win the championship. There, how's that?
The youngest Dutchman born in Belgium to win the championship.
Very specific championship, that.
It's his, though. It's his.
Yeah.
If he wins it.
But do you know, that will be his whether he's 30, whether he's 40, whenever he wins his first championship. So
Yeah.
let's talk about his championship hopes, though. Do you think he's got it in him to win it this year?
Absolutely, yeah, I do. I think he can do it. But he's got to cut out some of the mistakes that he does make. And we don't know what he's like in a championship battle yet. He doesn't, we've seen him, like last year, he was unbelievable last year. Apart from one race, Turkey, he should have won that race for me, but made a mistake while trying to pass Vettel, I think it was. Made a move that he didn't have to make. He's got to be wiser when it comes to that sort of thing. And I think, to be fair, in Bahrain he was. I think he could have just not let Hamilton back through, would have got a penalty, and yeah, he would have finished second anyway. But he wisely decided, you know what, the season's long, I can have another chance at this. I'm going to get a penalty. It's going to make me look bad as well.
Yeah.
I'm just going to let him back through and try again. So I think he has matured a lot. But the other thing as well is reliability. He has to break his voodoo in Italy. I don't think that's something we've talked about. He retired from all 3 Italian races last year.
Yeah.
All mechanical failures or collisions that weren't his fault, in my opinion. So he's got to get a bit of luck on his side too. But I think Red Bull, they do have the fastest car at the moment. And he's an incredible driver. So yeah, I think he could be champion this year. I don't think he will, to be honest. I think Hamilton will still do it, but I think it'll be tight.
Yeah. I agree. That's my hope anyway. I do think Hamilton's still got this year's. eventual season in the bag. I just hope it's really, really difficult for him. That's all we want as fans. It doesn't matter who wins, really. To the majority of fans, it's as long as the journey there is difficult and fun and entertaining to watch. One interesting point I saw in a comment on one social media post earlier today was that Honda have obviously pushed, because it's their last year in Formula One as Honda. They might be pushing their engine too much, so therefore we might see reliability issues later in the year. And I thought that's probably quite an interesting thing. Obviously, the car is quite quick this year. We've all kind of commented that it's going to be the fastest car on the grid, and it is the fastest car on the grid. Could it be that Honda have really kind of put everything into this engine, and they're going to push it to its absolute limit to make sure they finish on a high? And could we see issues later in the year where they take penalties for extra engines? You're nodding your head, Adam. Do you agree?
It's hard to say, because I think, with the restrictions on engine modes, I don't know how hard they'll be able to push the engine.
Right.
But yeah, I agree. They might want to, give their all for last season and really try to see what they can do with it. Mm-hmm. But it's not the first time that Red Bull's had reliability issues with any engine. They had plenty of reliability issues with the Renault beforehand. So whether it's Honda's issues or Red Bull's issues, who knows?
We don't know. Sponge, what's your opinion on that then? So do you think Max could become champion this year? Obviously, we've worked out he won't be the youngest champion. But do you think he'll be able to do it? Do you think he's got what it takes?
No, personally not, no. I think the first race proved the fact that I think Hamilton's just too wise for him. And I think if I was to compare Verstappen to anybody, it'd be Gilles Villeneuve. Because everything has to be done spectacularly. And I think, I can't remember who it was that said it. It was either Adam or George that said it.
Yeah.
He is too, not necessarily immature, but he just wants to do everything yesterday. And it's like, he rocks up on the back of a car and it's like, I've got to get past him now.
Yeah.
Like, no. Have a bit of a race. You know what I mean? Set him up. Get him over a couple of laps.
Yeah.
Like the racing used to be. And stop lunging in to drivers that you don't necessarily really know what they're going to do.
Absolutely.
I said this a while back, and you all ridiculed me, but I still say it, and I've not changed my mind. I don't think Max will ever be a world champion, and that's a controversial thing to say. But for that very reason, I don't think that he has it in him to be able to build a world championship out of a whole season of driving. How do I put it? I don't think that he can put a full season together whereby he wins enough races to win a world championship. Because I don't think he's as calm and considerate as you need to be able to do it. When he's out front, he's amazing. When he's in the wet, he's incredible.
Yeah.
But when he's like, in a position like he was last race, the team blew it for him last race, I personally think, because I don't think the team should have let Hamilton back through when they did. I think there would have been a much better place to let him through, and once that was done, that it was blown then. But I mean, again, I think coming back to the immaturity of Verstappen's kind of race plan, game plan, whatever you call it. I just don't think he's got it in him. Certainly this season, I don't think he's got it in him.
Okay. Well, it's definitely an interesting addition to the conversation. I kind of agree with you about him not winning ever, because he hasn't shown that he's got a full season's worth of control about him. And I know what you're saying. He's always going for that number one step on the podium, which is great to watch. It's entertaining for the fans. He's got a massive fan base because he's also is always so exciting, is always so kind of thrilling, and he always wants that next position, and he always wants to get past the next person. What he doesn't have is that the mind to go, hang on, 18 points in the championship is better than no points in the championship. I'll take second. I'll take the third, because those points are needed. Go on then, George. You got your hand up there. You want to add to that?
Yeah, just because I think it's interesting what you say, Sponge. I see where you're coming from. I think that's a valid point for him now, Verstappen. I think we don't know how he is across the whole season in a championship battle. We don't know whether he's going to make mistakes or cut them out. Given what we've seen before, probably make mistakes. But all I'll say to that is that we've had these incredible talents in the past where people's opinions have changed of them over time. In the 80s, people thought that Nigel Mansell was never going to win a world championship, and he did in 92. He matured, he got better. Yes, he had a hell of a Williams under him as well, but he won a championship. Some people, I think James Hunt said that Ayrton Senna had struggled to win the championship because he made too many mistakes. He had too many crashes. He got a lot of criticism for that. He's a 3-time world champion, and people think he's one of the best, if not the best ever. Michael Schumacher, I mean, obviously, when he had his crash with Villeneuve in 97, he already won 2 world championships, but the press in Italy were wanting him to get sacked from Ferrari, said he was not good enough, he's not the right man. He'd win 5 world championships between 2000 and 2004 and rewrite every record in the book. So people can change over time.
Absolutely.
I do take your point that he could struggle now, but he's 23. He could have 15 years left in an F1.
Yeah, he's got a long career, and lots of opportunities to do so. And obviously, he's got such a buzz behind him. So many people do feel he is the future world champion. That's got to be founded on something. But we hope we've answered your question, Darshil. I know you've got another one, actually, a question for us. So I'll go into that one while we're here. Darshil has asked, after seeing the first race, how is the midfield shaping up to be, and who looks to be the strongest right now? I'll go to Adam for that one.
Yeah, I think the midfield is going to be where the battles are this year. I think it's going to be the most entertaining part of the year. I think there's so many teams that are within a few tenths, and I think it's going to change every race. It'll be one race one team is stronger, next race another team stronger, and a bit like last year, where the most exciting part of the race was in the midfield. I think the strongest team at the minute is probably McLaren, mainly on race pace. But I think the sacrifice qualifying for the race. I think behind them would be Ferrari and AlphaTauri, sort of at the same level.
Okay.
And then slightly behind them is Alpine.
Okay. Interesting. Aston Martin, further down?
I don't think they're quite in the midfield yet. I still think they're struggling with the car. We might see them a bit further up mid-season.
Okay.
But I think they're still struggling a bit.
Okay, well, who's your number one midfield team then, George?
It's McLaren for me. I think they're clear of the rest. I do say that as another McLaren fan, so maybe I'm a bit biased, but I really am.
A McLaren fan, though, to be fair.
They all, just trust me, through 2016, 2017, 2018, it was very hard to be a McLaren fan. Now it's a very good time to be one.
Yeah.
No, I'm really happy with them. I'm very confident in the driver lineup as well. I think they got a better driver lineup this year than last year. I personally think Ricciardo is better than Sainz, and I think Lando Norris this year is better than Lando Norris last year because he's always improving.
Yeah.
For me, in terms of the F1 pecking order, there's tiers to it. There's Mercedes and Red Bull at the top. There's McLaren, Ferrari, and AlphaTauri. I think they're very fast AlphaTauri. I think they could upset a few. I think they would have been up there with Ferrari and got some very serious points if Pierre Gasly finished and Tsunoda got a better start. And I think below that there's another tier with Aston Martin and Alpine. I think they're a ways off, to be honest. I actually think that Alfa Romeo is not far behind those two either. I think they're up there with them.
Yeah, no.
So McLaren are the standouts for me in the midfield. I think Ferrari or AlphaTauri could on their day beat them, but I just think they were so solid in Bahrain, and Ricciardo still finished in 7th even though he had wing damage. I think they're going to finish third comfortably.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, well, these are all things that we probably all think the same. McLaren is would that be your midfield team of choice, Sponge?
Absolutely, without doubt. I think AlphaTauri are going to be the ones that are the dark horses. I think they're going to probably take the position that Renault were last season and the season before. The kind of the ones that are kind of the top end of that midfield. But I think McLaren are going to stay where they were, and they're just going to be joined by another team, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I agree that Ricciardo is better than Sainz, and that Norris is better this season than he was last season.
Yeah.
He's had at least 100 iRacing races since then. So, you know. But yeah, I genuinely think that McLaren, I do think that they're going to push for wins as well this season. And I do genuinely think that there's a chance this weekend that they could catch teams on the hop.
Yeah.
I really want to see it. So, yeah, first corner, all we need is Verstappen to take Perez out, or vice versa. Bottas just to wipe out Hamilton, and then let's let everybody else have a ruck.
So basically,
we can only hope.
The front four cars have just got to crash off the track, and then McLaren will win.
Yeah, it's fine. Just somebody.
Stranger things have happened, so.
You never know. You never know.
But this is why we love it, though, isn't it? This is why we keep watching, because that kind of
unpredictability.
That feeling that I've got that McLaren could do well. That's what keeps you watching, because you just want to see them do well. I mean, we're obviously we're all British, and the British way is we love the underdog, and I think McLaren are firmly now the underdog. Despite their dominance in past decades, they are firmly now the underdog, and I'd very much like to see them back up there fighting for wins.
Brilliant, yeah, absolutely. Same here. Darshil, hopefully we've answered your question, but we probably do have a massive McLaren bias, because that's all four of us that have said the McLaren.
Unashamedly so as well.
Yeah, so Darshil, hopefully we've answered your question. Apologies that you are speaking to four McLaren fans. We shouldn't apologise for that, because it's great to support McLaren. But I think they are clearly ahead at the moment. There was big questions at the start before the cars had been on the track about will Aston Martin be up there? But obviously now the rake difference has had an issue and has proven to be kind of the thorn in their boot, as it were, and has put them in a bad position for this season at the moment. It's something that I'm sure that they will copy off Mercedes and get better towards the mid to the late part of the season.
Controversial.
But let's go to one more question that we've had from. It was from Andy. This one, and it said, "How come the Merc team are ruling out using a full rake system like Red Bull?" Well, I think that's simple, really. Well, I think it's quite a simple answer. It's too much of an adjustment for the car. If they adjusted the rake of the car, they'd have to adjust so many other aspects of the car in order to facilitate that, and that is just too big a job. It's best to kind of go with what they've got and adjust slight things to try and negate those issues. Have you got anything to add to that, Adam?
Yeah, well, I think it's such a change in philosophy of the car, and how the air moves over the car, and how it works the diffuser at the rear. I think with the restrictions this year in wind tunnel time and money spent, I just don't think they have the budget to put a lot of effort into that. But for this year, I think it's just a waste of resources.
Yeah.
When I think they're fast enough with Red Bull that they don't really need to put that much effort into it.
Yeah, it's just not worth the money. It's there are things that they can do on the car that negate the need for it. Hopefully, that's pretty much the answer that we can give for it. Really,
they've won 6 or 7 championships with a low rake car.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure they can figure out how to win it with a low rake car again.
Yes, absolutely. Hopefully, we've answered your question there, Andy. It's just going to be too expensive and a waste of time, really, because they can find 0.2 of a second in other places to get the car up to speed. Okay, so that's the questions that we've had from our fans. Thank you very much for sending those in. We really appreciate you contributing to our podcast. By all means, you feel free to pop the questions on our next podcast request. We will answer them as and when we can. Okay, so all that's left for me to do is promote, obviously, all of our social medias. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, @JoinEF1. Thank you very much for tuning in today. We want to thank our guest, George. George, do you want to promote your own podcast so people can go and head over to yours and have a listen?
If you don't mind, yeah. So I help organise and I occasionally host the Grid Talk podcast. You can find it on the F1 Chronicle website, f1chronicle.com. We also stream our shows live as well on YouTube. Search for F1 Grid Talk on there. We usually do our streams like about an hour or so after the race or after qualifying finishes, and obviously we do the previews as well. And hopefully we should be getting yourselves, James, or maybe Coops on as well this weekend. So if you want to hear more from the guys on Everything F1, you can come over to our show this weekend on qualifying. Brilliant.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to it. If I can't get there, I will send the ginger bearded Coops across to have a beard off with you. See who has the
That sounds dodgy, I'm not going to lie.
Have a beard off. But yeah, we're looking forward to obviously appearing on your show too. So everyone go over to Grid Talk, their podcast, have a listen. They've got lots of good insight. And of course, they've got the F1 Chronicle website as well, where they drop some news on there. You've got a few days to adjust your fantasy teams if you are part of our fantasy league. And if you're not part of our fantasy league, you can join it if you've got one of those teams already set up with the F1 site. Our code is 7FF60917C0. By all means, join that fantasy league and you can try and win a prize for being the winner of the season. Just head to fantasy.f1.com to join. All that's left for me to say is thank you very much for tuning in today. Please make sure you subscribe to the podcast and give us a great 5-star review. That would be absolutely brilliant, and it will help our podcast get into the ears of many more fans. So thank you very much from me, James Tiller. Thank you very much from Spunge. Say bye-bye, Spunge.
Bye-bye, everybody. Have a good week.
Thank you very much from Adam. Say goodbye, Adam.
Bye.
And thank you very much from our guest, George Howson from F1 Chronicles Grid Talk. Bye-bye, George. Thanks again.
Oh, thank you very much. See you guys later. Thanks for having us on.
Brilliant.
Bye, George.
Bye.
Later.
Thank you very much, everybody, and we'll speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.